you will believe your life is completely and totally fucked. You know, until it passes.
The Spiritual Shitshow podcast with Suzanne Sole, episode number 7. Hey, all you shit-tacular motherfuckers. Welcome to the Spiritual Shitshow podcast, where we get into the shit-tastic dumpster fire the healing and spiritual awakening journey can be. I'm your host, Suzanne Sole, comedian, lifelong spiritual student, and I'm sharing some of the delicious crap I've learned along my journey that has helped me climb my way out of life's butthole, and that I hope can help you too. Okay, so you know that cute-ass voice in your head that always seems to sound off when you're in bed just about to fall asleep? Or while you're out on a walk on a beautiful day, it's like, hey girl, I thought this would be a good time to lay out how everything sucks in your life right now, like a Saturday morning Sizzler's buffet, so we could pick through it and feel fucked up afterwards instead of enjoying this nice weather. Today, we're talking about the negativity bias, that built-in feature of your brain that won't shut the fuck up about all the ways you're screwing up your life. Did 10 people tell you they love your work? Cool. But one person said, meh, and now you're questioning your entire existence. We're going to deep dive into this shit show and find out how we can use spiritual teachings and tools like a soothing balm on this blistering boil of the psyche. JK, the negativity bias is just the brain doing its job. The brain just doesn't know that sometimes this job really rains on our parade, just like Jerry didn't know he was secretly drinking decaf in that coffee commercial. But before we start, I'm going to give a spoiler alert / quote from author and psychologist Carl Jung, who said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious."
Dang, Carl. Why you gotta be like that? I mean, that is criminal, dude.
Okay, I know. What the fuck is the negativity bias? Okay, so the negativity bias is this lovely little feature in your brain that's wired to prioritize bad shit over good shit, you know, for survival. So you actually fucking need it, but also it seems to have evolved in some interesting ways. Evolved from what? What did it start out like? Good question. Okay, so back in caveman days, our ancestors had to keep their focus on the possible dangers that might be around because a missed opportunity for berries was fine, but a missed saber-toothed tiger meant you were dinner. Cavemen didn't sit around the fire saying, you know what I'm grateful for today? That we didn't run out of marshmallows this time. They were busy thinking, dude, did you just hear that twig snap? So our brains were like, you know what? Let's focus on the bad shit. It might save our lives. And it worked. Our ancestors survived. I mean, we're here now, so they did. This negativity bias has adapted to our present day life, which is less saber-toothed tigers and more passive-aggressive texts that say, whatever. When you get that text, you're not actually in danger, but your brain is still like, oh my God, I am not okay right now. Except you probably are. Unless, of course, the person then comes over to your house and throws you in front of a saber-toothed tiger. And I'm going to disclaimer that shit by saying that if you are in a situation where you actually are in physical danger, be chill and safely get the fuck out of there and don't go back. They never change. Trust. In psychological terms, the negativity bias is a cognitive bias that causes experiences and events of a more negative nature to have a greater effect on our psychological state than neutral or positive things. In other words, negative events impact us more, even if the positive ones are just as important. I know. Bummer. So basically, what it sounds like you're saying, psychology, is that the negativity bias that helped us to continue to exist as a species and why we don't see saber-toothed tigers running around is still interacting with us just as intensely, but now it's mostly around emotional, psychological, and social stuff. Yes. Okay. Does science have anything to say about this? Yes, science here. Okay, so check it out. Our brain processes negative information in a different region than it processes positive information. The amygdala, that almond shaped bundle of nerves deep inside your brainsies, processes mostly negative information and is your brain's threat detector. It gets triggered when you encounter a threat or when it thinks you could be encountering a threat. Like when the fire detector in your house goes off while you're innocently frying bacon. Mmm, bacon. Conversely, positive information is processed in the prefrontal cortex, which is more like slow roasting a rib roast, meaning it doesn't go as fast as the amygdala, but it's delicious. So, when a situation arises that could be seen as negative or positive, it's like a race between the sprinting amygdala and the marathon runner prefrontal cortex. And guess who usually wins? Yep, the amygdala. Cue the amygdala national anthem. You got a fast car. Is it fast enough so we could fly away? Still gotta make a decision. Leave tonight or live and die this way. So, everyone experiences negativity bias in our modern psychologically, emotionally, and socially focused world in different ways and on different levels. There are some people who experience some of the annoyances of the negativity bias, but don't seem to get completely and totally derailed when the negativity bias comes online. And then there are those of us who apparently signed up for the negativity bias premium plan and can become totally derailed when it comes online. Because, why do anything half assed? The negativity bias premium plan, I made the term up, FYI, but I like it, is when the negativity bias distorts your perspective of yourself and your life, disproportionately focusing on the negative aspects of a situation or life in general. The negativity bias premium plan can present in various ways, such as being based on your moods. Like when you feel sad, it can color how you interpret events, making everything seem more negative than it might actually be. Like, he dumped me and now everything is shit, or where you're only focused on the negative aspects of a situation and totally ignoring the positives. He dumped me because everything about me is wrong. And my personal favorite, catastrophizing, exaggerating the importance of negative events or outcomes on your life. He dumped me. And now I will never meet anyone who will love me, and my life will be nothing but disaster after disaster, and everything will be terrible forever and ever. Some of the ways I have personally experienced the negativity bias premium plan have been when I've made mistakes, experienced failure, rejection, or disappointment. The usuals. Any one of those situations could easily send me into a pit of despair. I could get 27 compliments at my job, but my boss could say one tiny thing like, maybe you could sharpen this a little, and boom, I would be spiraling, convinced I was about to be fired and living in a van down by the river, which, let's be real, is actually super cool right now. If only Chris Farley could be here to enjoy that. I'm sure there would have been a whole series of white van life down by the river skits. A moment of silence for a comedy genius who is remembered fondly. So, a component of negativity bias is that it can be reinforced. Neuroplasticity means that the brain is constantly building, breaking, and rearranging connections between cells based upon experiences and needs. The more the brain uses a connection, the more that neurological pathway gets built up. Neurologist and Williams College adjunct professor Judy Willis highlights this process, saying the more times the network is stimulated, the stronger and more efficient it becomes. In other words, if we unconsciously take the negativity bias as gospel, we will become more and more affected and directed by the negativity bias. So now you might ask, how do people who are on the negativity bias premium plan get signed up? I mean, how does the negativity bias get to be extra in some people? I want to know. but also don't want to know at the same time. So, we all grow up with this negativity bias survival tool in our brains in all different kinds of households with all different levels of craziness and dysfunction. No matter where you grew up, shit happened that hurt you or scared you and began forming your personal experience of and relationship to the negativity bias feature of your brain. Our brains most need to learn from failures and criticisms when we're children. So it's like we're little negativity bias sponges, just soaking it all up. And if you grew up in a household where there was a lot of chaos, or you didn't feel safe, or there were a lot of demands on you, love felt conditional, maybe there was a lot of criticism or anger in the house, maybe your family went through a divorce, or maybe life was simply just stressful for everyone in the household due to illness or financial burdens. In environments where we may have had to be on high alert to stay physically or emotionally safe, or if life was chaotic and unpredictable, our brains may have learned to scan for danger in hyper alert mode, seeing possible threats even when there might not be any. Going through very difficult times as an adult can also affect our negativity bias and put it into this hyper stealth mode as well. Either way, our special brand of negativity bias gets developed throughout our formidable years. So, our brains haven't evolved much from the good old caveman days, but now we're not dodging saber-toothed tigers, we're trying to survive traffic or giving a presentation at work. But our brains are still like, let's hyper focus on everything that could go wrong. And don't even get me started about trying to manifest stuff. For those of us on the negativity bias premium plan, it ain't easy. You'll be repeating affirmations like, I am worthy, I am wealthy. And your brain's like, are you though, Barb? You haven't paid off your Target card, and you could use a pedicure. Michael Singer, who wrote The Untethered Soul, says eventually you will see that the real cause of your problem is not life itself. It's the commotion the mind makes about life. Well, Mickey, sometimes my mind is doing the loco commotion. Like I said, we all experience the negativity bias in different degrees. I mean, although I am a very bubbly yet sardonic gal, I have a pretty serious case of the negativity bias. Sounds like something a doctor might need to talk to me about in person.
Suzanne, we got the results of your test, and it pains me to tell you this, but you tested positive for the negativity bias. I mean, the results were negative. I mean, you have it.
Oh my gosh, Doc. Am I going to live?
Negatively speaking, yes.
Oh, geez. Are there any symptoms or features of this negativity bias that I need to pay attention to? I mean, how will this thing affect my life?
Well, you know how in olden times they took photos using actual cameras with actual film?
Yes. And afterwards, they had to go into a red room, but not like the red room from 50 Shades of Grey, just one where you develop film.
Yes, but what I mean is,
Oh my gosh. Am I going to have to get a job in one of those old timey photomat kiosks they used to have in strip mall parking lots in the 80s? Are they bringing those back? Because number one, coolio. But number two, literally, I go to the bathroom a lot. So I don't think I would be a good fit for that job.
no,
Oh, well, then what is it? Oh, geez. My life is totally fucked, isn't it?
that's it.
Damn it. I knew my life was going to be totally fucked because of this.
No, I mean what you said. How this affects your life is that you will constantly think your life is totally fucked. Whenever anything happens that makes you feel sad, bad, rejected, disappointed, vulnerable, you will believe your life is completely and totally fucked. You know, until it passes. And if it goes unmonitored, you could experience what might feel like an almost continual perspective of doom over and over, going from one thing to the next. But not to worry. The subject of concern stays pretty much consistent in that you'll mostly be thinking about only two things: how your life is totally fucked, or how your life is going to be totally fucked. I mean, that's the main feature.
Oh, geez. Well, I've been living with that for years.
So many go undiagnosed.
OMG, Doc. Is there anything I can do? I mean, besides spiraling, catastrophizing, dissociating with TV or social media, overeating? I mean, I gave up drugs and alcohol, so that's out.
May I finish my metaphor about the film negative?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Doc.
Okay. When we look at our life experiences with negativity bias, like a photo negative, the negative aspects are more prominent and appear darker, while the positive aspects are less noticeable. Similar to how a photo negative shows the dark areas of a picture as light and vice versa, highlighting the tendency to focus more on negative events than positive ones. Anyways, that'll be $5 million.
Wow, that's a lot. Do you take gift cards? So now that I've been officially diagnosed by myself playing a doctor, let's ask a very important question. Why is it so damn hard to stay positive? Well, since we are biologically prone to negativity bias, we have to intentionally pay attention to our attention. So let's talk about conscious awareness, shall we?
Let's shall.
The negativity bias can run rampant in our minds, and we may not even be consciously aware of it. We may only know that we feel stressed out a lot, or worried, or mistrustful more often than we'd like. Or we are somewhat aware of it, and we've developed a relationship with our negativity bias where we silently argue with it every day. It's kind of like having George Costanza's parents from the TV show Seinfeld living in our heads. Since when do you know how to write? I never saw you write anything. I don't know how you're going to write all those shows. And where are you going to get all those ideas?
Would you leave him alone? You'll shatter his confidence. Serenity now!
Like I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, Carl Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Translation? Although yoga is amazing, we can't out-yoga our bullshit. We have to face it. Spiritual enlightenment isn't about deleting our darkness. It's about learning to dance with it and maybe throwing in some jazz hands. So we can accept all of ourselves, fall in love with all that we are, not just the parts we think we need to avoid criticism and rejection. We want to invite the negativity bias in our brains to the table, look it in the eye and say, listen, babe, I see you, but I'm not letting you drive the van anymore. When we bring the negativity bias we experience into the light, into our awareness, we can start to work with it. Alan Watts said, you're under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago. And I just love that. What I know from my experience as a human person is that not only can the negativity bias show up and crash your party sometimes, it does so sending the message that the status or outcome it's communicating to you is permanent and nothing will ever be good again. But that is impossible, darling. King Solomon could not banish his sorrow, no matter what he tried. The remedies prepared by his doctors, the advice offered by his wise counselors, he continued to be unhappy, becoming more despondent every day that passed. In desperation, messengers were sent out across the land, promising a reward to anyone who could help the king. The greatest experts came to the palace and tried their best, but to no avail. Eventually, an advisor met an old jeweler who had carved an inscription into a simple gold band for the king. When the king received the ring, he looked at the inscription, which read, "This too shall pass." And he was healed. The recognition that nothing in the world is permanent freed him. Here's the thing. At the end of the day, we are not our negativity bias, and our negativity bias is not us, nor does it understand who we truly are. So we have to tell it, girl, by showing it compassion and learning not to get hooked every time it casts a line. And remember who you are as Magnitsky's. You are made of the same stuff as the sun and the stars. You are pure potentiality. The thing is, babe, you're magical. So tell that to your negativity bias pal who just worries about you too much. Pema Chodron says, "You are the sky. Everything else, it's just the weather." And Michael Singer said, "You are not your thoughts. You are aware of your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You feel your emotions. You are not your body. You look at it in the mirror and experience this world through its eyes and ears. You are the conscious being who is aware that you are aware of all these inner and outer things. We're not the objects, we are the subject or observer of it all. So take that negativity bias. You ain't even in the same grade as me." Now, okay, you might be like, okay, we get it. So how do we deal with this relentless shit talking part of our brains, lady? Give us some frickin' tips already. Okay, calm your negativity bias the fuck down. And disclaimer, there are no quick fixes to any of this shit. So take that idea out of your head. It's all about consistency and practice. Okay, tip number 1, notice it. When your brain starts spiraling, stop and say, "Oh, there's my caveman brain doing its thing." Name it. Call it Bob, Carol, Jazzy McJazzerson. Whatever you do, don't believe every thought you have. Your brain is like TMZ, mostly sensational bullshit. Hot tip number 2, reframe the thought. Instead of, "I totally fucked up," try, "I'm not always going to be perfect. And I learned something for next time." I know it sounds Pollyanna as fuck, but it works. When negativity bias says, "You're a disaster," say, "Yes, but I'm a beautiful disaster." Tip number 3, balance it. For every negative thought, find a positive one. When you hear that negative voice say, "I'm such an idiot," stop and think, okay, but I waited in line to get coffee today without being annoyed at the slow barista, even though I thought she could have used a cup of coffee herself. And I'd say that's a win. Tip number 4, gratitude. But for real, not just the general, "I'm grateful for the sunshine," although that is wonderful. Throw some specific everyday stuff in there like, "I am grateful for this coffee I got from the slow barista because it's super tasty and it makes me a better person." Gratitude shifts the focus from what's wrong to what's right, even if it's small. Tip number 5, meditation and prayer. Meditation doesn't have to look like a scene from a wellness retreat. Just sit your ass down, except for if you're in the middle of the street. Close your eyes and breathe. When your brain wanders, just bring it back. And praying can help you connect and talk with the divine, and that just feels juicy. You can pray about your negativity bias running wild or not, it doesn't matter. Just the act of connecting to spirit through meditation and prayer changes your brain chemistry. Look it up. And remember, you're not broken because you have the negativity bias. You're human. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's just overdoing it a bit and wearing too many accessories because it has evolved with the times, and maybe we just need to catch up with it and see what the hell it's doing these days. And if it's super extra premium plan, maybe it just needs a little rewiring. And any electrician will tell you that can be helped. So give yourself some grace. And let's not forget therapy, because some of us need professional support to untangle. There's no shame in getting professional help and support. If your car has some issues, you get a mechanic. If your mind has some issues, you call a therapist. And also, there are many, many amazing spiritual teachers with so many amazing teachings all over the internet. Just look up any of the spiritual teachers I have mentioned in this podcast episode. They are a wealth of information for healing and spiritual enlightenment. Another thing I like to do when I'm really having a negativity bias moment is write about it. And this is not like Dear Diary. This is like, get it all out, write anything and write everything. And sometimes I'm able to work something out myself through writing about it. Writing your thoughts can help you learn more about what's going on in your noggin. That can help you help yourself and help you discover some of the tactics the negativity bias might be using to quote unquote protect you, aka make your life less fun. Negativity bias tells us we're stuck, but we're not. We're never stuck. Author and spiritual teacher Byron Katie says, "Who would you be without your story?" That sounds like a scary question, doesn't it? Because sometimes we hold on to our stories like they're rafts, even though they're dragging us down. Darlings, the negativity bias is a part of our brains. We need it, and it's not going anywhere. But as we evolve, maybe it can evolve with us in a way that works for us. We just have to work with ourselves in a mindful, compassionate, and loving way to get it there. We notice it, and then we can work with it, and it doesn't have to run the show. So the next time the negativity bias is fucking you up, talk to it, invite it to the party, but just don't let it DJ. Remember, you're the MC, babe. And so much more. All right, you fabulous motherfuckers, this has been the Spiritual Shitshow podcast. And as always, my love for you goes on and on and on. And I'll see you on the next one. Roll it, roll it, roll it, roll it, roll it, roll it.